Hello and welcome to another episode of the VR Download. However, it is Monday, not Thursday, and so we have to make things easier for our audience, separated out the VR Download into two separate sections. The first section will be on Mondays, and it's going to be more hardware, generic industry related. So there's not going to be discussion on games and entertainment type of things. We're saving that for Thursday. So the VR Download on Thursday will then have games, what are we playing, stuff like that.
If you want an idea of what to expect, me and David, we have the first gaming episode from last Thursday up now, so you can go over to YouTube or your podcast streaming of your choice and check that out.
So you get me, Kyle, and Jamie today.
Hello, Ian.
So
when his internet works.
Hey, you know, Ian's taken a page out of my book and is actually trying to use the Taco Bell Wi-Fi down the street. All right. So hello to the regulars and all the new folks. I have the new tablets that are running Upload OS. It's proprietary. All right. Well, the first... Hello, Ian.
I feel like based on the silence and the slow moving, Ian's probably not here.
Right.
I feel like this is the ghost of Ian. If you're listening right now, the ghost of Ian is joining us this podcast.
Give us a sign. Not once if you are here. Bit by bit, he's trying to show up.
Maybe he just wants to hear me talk about the HP Reverb G2.
A PC VR headset. I'm excited to hear about this. PC VR doesn't have a whole lot of options. So is the G2 the savior?
I have a review unit of this. This is a headset people have been looking forward to for a long, long time because like the original Reverb from last year, it's got 2160 by 2160 per eye resolution, which is really, really, really sharp. If you don't know that stuff, it's better than the Quest 2's resolution. It's better than the Valve Index's resolution. Yeah, there was a version of it last year. I think people, while they liked the screen, they had problem with like the ergonomics, and it had like 2 camera inside out tracking, which wasn't super stable. They've come back this year with a partnership still on the mixed reality platform, Windows Mixed Reality, but also with a partnership with Valve, which lends them a whole bunch of stuff that you can see in this picture here. If you look towards the back of this headset, you'll notice some very index-like ergonomics. There's some of the same kind of fabric cushioning that you get with the Index. The exact same speakers, off-ear speakers that sit just dangle above your ear, which lots of people really, really liked on the Index. And also lens design is a bit different, even though the display is essentially the same. So I got this headset on Friday, and I've been putting a good number of hours into it over the weekend. I've been going back to some PC VR classics, booted up Google Earth for the first time in a while. I've been looking forward to this thing for quite a long time, and I would say mainly so far, with the caveat that this is not my final review and I've still got more testing time ahead of me. I really, really like it with some caveats. The display is absolutely incredible. A fairly noticeable jump from the Quest 2 to this. I went back and saw, for example, I went and played Skyrim VR, and looking at the world around Skyrim VR, I suddenly started to notice like individual blades of grass and like the different leaves on a fern, or like if I got my arrows out, I noticed for the first time in VR really like how sharp the arrow points were. And that's really, really incredible, especially when you then pair it with how comfortable the thing is. A real treat, I would say, to wear. Ironically, it's actually a little heavier than the Quest 2. You can actually take this cable out and store it without any cable whatsoever. And when you do that and weigh it next to the Quest 2, it's about 100 grams heavier. But because the weight is distributed all over the device, unlike on the Quest 2, where all the computer's at the front, so it's very, very front heavy, this thing feels absolutely phenomenal to wear. Having said that, and again, this is all just very, very early impressions, tracking's not super brilliant with it. You will notice where you lose the field of view for tracking much more than you do on a Quest 2 from what I've found so far. I don't know. It almost makes me nostalgic because even though I've been using Quest 2 mainly for the past 3 months, I've just forgotten how much a PC VRY can tug at the back of your head, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's one thing with it. The controllers, these are newly designed for this headset specifically, but they're very top heavy and kind of stubby. These handles here are kind of stubby in the hands. They're not awful, but I'm not too crazy about them. And it runs on the Windows mixed reality platform, which is kind of a relic in this day and age. I think it was 2017 we first saw the first Windows VR headsets, and the platform hasn't really grown since then. In fact, you could argue it's been pretty neglected since then.
The controllers themselves, I'm very intrigued at the Windows mixed reality ecosystem. Do you have an old version?
I don't have them, but I've used them before. I remember, it's been a while, but I remember those being quite top heavy. I don't know if you'd say that.
Those controllers were, for a lack of better terms, just bulky. They were. Yeah, they weren't bad, but the big ring and that lipped kind of process in the middle there that connects it to the. I'm glad to see a new version of it come out, and when you look at the other controllers from the other headsets, it looks like somebody actually asked a VR user what they'd like, what they'd want, and then they tried to fiddle that into something that is also obviously viable for usage with the tracking. I mean, that big ring up there is necessary for the tracking. All the other controllers have rings of some sort as well. I wonder about, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the meetings when a Microsoft person said, can we get that piece up there that holds the ring a little narrower? Can we maybe change the design? Can we have it like underneath or something? I don't. This baffles me.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, one of the really good things about them is they sit very comfortably and neatly when you turn them upside down for storage.
They do. Yeah.
That's about like the only really, really good thing. Another point is that when you're wearing them, using them, these lights are actually on. And
Yes.
Zena, who is, often in the room when I'm using VR, often says that they're actually kind of distracting for her because they are actually just really, really bright and almost like Christmas decorations, which is quite funny. The other thing I do want to point out is if you look at those older controllers, the handle is longer, and this is actually very, very stubby. So if I hold this rounded bit here I can actually feel it like around the very bottom of my hand, which for me is kind of uncomfortable. And I think that also really contributes to the top heaviness of the device. I think these are too short, and thus you kind of feel your hands leaning a little bit while you're holding them. Just a little bit.
Yeah. Now, some people will make the argument that who cares what it looks like? You're in VR. So who cares what it is physically on the outside? It could be, pink with purple polka dots. Actually, that would probably be cool. But it doesn't matter because what's in the experience itself is what's important. Usability, obviously, is critical. Have you found yourself hitting things with it?
No, although I am fairly well spaced out in my VR setup. I don't have the luxury of walking in my setup, but when I'm standing still, I'm pretty far out of reach from anything.
Well, the reason I ask is because with the OG Acer Windows MR headset or the Odyssey Plus, the ones that have the older controllers, I did find that the Windows MR controllers, I tended to hit things more often with those than I did with the other brands of controllers. And that's why I asked that question.
I could definitely see the reasoning behind that, yes. Also, the haptics, maybe I'm just too used to the new Quest 2 haptics, but not that great in this kind of a very weak vibration. And again, we're being very negative on the controllers. I think the headset itself is really, really good. Some people asked for me to talk about the resolution. I did mention it. If you go back in the podcast just a couple of minutes, I was talking about it then, but really, really incredible. You get really, really nice details out of virtual worlds that you won't find on pretty much any other headset. Audio is really crystal clear. My favorite thing, I did mention this very, very briefly, and I'm sure you can do this with other PC VR headsets, but it's very easy here. This face lining is magnetized, so it comes out really, really easily, and then you just take this wire out also really, really easily, and then you can store it as neatly as you store a Quest 2, provided you just shove all the wires, a litany of wires somewhere.
So I'm going to ask you questions as if I was completely uninformed. And is the cord so easy to remove that if I give it a good tug,
No.
it'll come out?
I haven't had anything like that. It goes in really, really, really far and really secure to the point where it can be quite hard to make sure you've properly got the connection in there when you're plugging it in, just because they want to make sure it's so secure in there. And then the faceplate, once it's back in magnetized, will hold it in place and won't let it move.
What about God rays and things
that's a
that
great
people complain
question.
about on other headsets?
So I would say so far, and I do need to go back and play specifically looking for them, so I can't comment too much for it right now. But the time I've noticed God rays the most is the time you would always notice them the most, when you are first loading up a game and you get all the white text, like the legal jargon and these people made that and whatnot. That's where I see them, and they're quite prevalent. I haven't noticed it a heck of a lot when you get inside an environment and you start immersing yourself in there. But like I said, I need to go back and specifically look at that. And it would be great, chat, if you have suggestions for good apps to look at God rays with, I'm all ears, because that is something I definitely want to look into.
Those aren't God rays; those are devil rays.
Yes, those
Is
are
that
just
a thing?
That's just hellish light. Playing Doom VFR clearly.
So the speakers, the headphones are off the ear. Is that accurate? Okay,
yeah, that's how people describe it.
Is Xena hearing the experience as much as you?
No, I don't think so. Let's ask Xena. When I use the HP Reverb G2, are you hearing the experience from the off-ear speakers as much as me, or is it kind of not really? You don't hear anything. Xena doesn't hear anything, and I usually play at pretty loud volume. So
okay, that's encouraging. Very good. Very good. It looks like Adam is saying MRTV says they're non-existent. I'm assuming he's talking about the God rays.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I will have to go back and properly check that out, because that is not something I want to neglect in my review.
That's a big deal. That's a pretty big deal for a lot of people. I know that even with the Quest 2, which is what I'm wearing right now, there's that occasional, like you said, a load screen or something that reminds me that this is a Fresnel lens and that there's little, sparklies on the edge. Yeah, so that's a pretty important piece. I noticed the nose piece has the flaps. How light blocked are you here?
I think pretty light blocked. That's a great point, because I'm so used to using my VR cover on my Quest 2, which is what I've got installed right now. But actually, I'm quite used to zero light in a headset at the moment, and I haven't noticed a difference when moving over to the Reverb G2, to the point I haven't thought about it. So I'm going to say a really great light blockage, if that's your thing. But also, flip up feature. Can flip the visor up and rest it on your headset for a bit, on your head, not your headset. For a bit, if you want to get a drink, or if you want to quickly answer something on the computer or whatnot, which I love that feature. I wish all headsets had that. I understand why some people don't, because it makes it harder to hold on your face. But I think the way HP does it, actually, it still feels very secure on your face. So I think that's a really, really cool feature. Cheeseburger. There is still screen door effect, yes. 4K resolution is still not going to be human eye resolution. However, if you've used Quest 2 and seen how kind of much, much smaller it's getting with Quest 2, this takes it another step further, which I think is really, really good. I think Oculus scientists once said that you need something like 16K.
16K,
for it to be human eye resolution. So you are gonna notice distortion and slight discrepancies in virtual worlds until you start hitting 16K. So that's 4 times 4K. Still a long way to go on that front, but it really is really, really, really nice to see. Is it more comfortable than the Index? I'm going to say yes. I think it is more comfortable than the Index. I think the Index is a bit bulkier. It doesn't have the back dial that the Index has, which is a shame. I really like back dials on headsets. Again, they make putting them on much easier. It makes it much easier to pass a headset around. This uses 2 Velcro straps, as you can see on one side here, and a Velcro strap on the top. Not incredibly easy to find, the VR sweet spot every time, but it's once you do, it is remarkably comfortable, in my opinion.
That raises an excellent question. Is this able to be, well, I guess we would call it Franken V2? Would there be an option to remove and change the strap out, is what I'm asking.
I wouldn't want to try it personally. It's quite well anchored in there. I also don't think you'd want to. I mean, you get everything you want with this setup. I guess
the Halo strap.
There is the Halo strap, and I guess I'd be interested to see if someone would make a Halo strap for Franken Quest 2. But honestly, I find, and I'm very particular about this stuff, I find the current setup as comfortable as a Halo strap.
Excellent.
And that's rare for me to say. So
there was a question here about the FOV compared to Quest 2.
I can't recall the specs off the top of my head, but very, very, very similar to Quest 2. I wouldn't say I noticed one way or the other.
I'm just going to make a blanket statement. Most of these headsets that are on the market now or will be coming out anytime in the near future, the difference in FOV is going to be negligible until we make the statement of, holy cow, this is the one that changes FOV for everything. This is the game changer. So I would assume, for me, I have to use the spacer on my Quest 2 to move my face plate back because I am a bespectacled individual, glasses, and I'd rather not scratch a third set in VR. So I think all that stuff we will make it known.
Pumpkin Eater asks, are there cameras? Can you see / map the room? Yes, there are cameras. There are 4 to track where you are in the room. However, as far as I know, I haven't come across any feature. You can't see the room using pass-through, but you do have to map the room using your headset once you first boot up Windows, and it will remember that for the next time you use it.
Gunnerman Plays is asking, how is the tracking prediction compared to the Quest 2? I mean, you'd have to do a really in-depth analysis to answer that question.
I will say this, Gunnerman, from what I've seen so far, where Reverb G2's tracking really struggles is when you hold controllers down by your waist. So they're not directly in view, you're not holding them out here, but like say you're just walking along in a virtual world with nothing to do at that particular point in time, you might hold them down by your waist, or maybe there's a button just here that you're trying to push. You won't see that you won't see the controller on your headset, obviously, in that point. So most of the time you wouldn't notice that the tracking's actually not doing so well. But in some games you have that kind of persistent laser pointer in quite a lot of VR apps, really. And because of that, you will notice often that it's actually off by a couple of angles, a couple of degrees or whatnot. But when it's in the field of view of the tracking, it's all working really, really well. I haven't had any problems with the headset tracking itself so far, so that's good. And I believe I was speaking about this with HeaneyGod earlier, and he was saying the difference between the tracking field of view for the Quest and Windows is that Quest's is wider in a vertical sense. If that's probably a terrible way of describing that. Whereas Windows is wider in the traditional wideness, horizontal plane, the x-axis, if you will. I think that's the x-axis. I might have got that wrong as well. Let's move on.
No, completely Z correct. Is up, right? Z is up. Don't at me. Is that how that works?
No. Yeah, I will at you. Z is not up. How dare you?
I have to make the observation that the camera placement on this headset, and I saw a photo, I think that Jamie, you posted on your Twitter of you wearing the headset. It looks really cool aesthetically.
As far as placement goes,
yeah. I almost feel like I wish that HP logo wasn't up there.
It lights up. I don't know if that comes up in that picture, but the HP logo lights up. So
interesting.
There you go. A little more extra Christmas magic.
So there's been, and this will be kind of the final note on this headset here, but there's been a lot of folks who are saying that this is the savior of PC VR. This is the way to use PC VR to its fullest, while subverting certain platforms. Do you think that those are warranted proclamations?
So I'm right. I'm getting into like the grit of my review at the moment when I'm not in the download, but it's a very, very loaded question. The question and the answer is, who are you as a VR consumer? If you really do want to avoid Facebook and you really, really love high-end VR, and $600 sounds okay to you to avoid Facebook, then yes, I do really, really, really like this headset. And I do think as an enthusiast headset, which is what I would describe it as, because I think $600 is an enthusiast price at the end of the day. And nothing priced $600 as a primarily, gaming device is going to save PC VR, as it turns out, or as they'd say. It's a great enthusiast device. I'm a VR enthusiast. I'm going to keep using this thing. Will it save PC VR? Will it take on Facebook? I mean, no. The Quest 2 is just half the price of this, and very, very comparable, both on like the headset specs themselves and the fact that you can then just plug a Quest 2 into a PC anyway. The math doesn't really add up, but I completely respect the choice. If you want to avoid Facebook and you're looking for best-in-class VR, I think it's a really good choice.
It's a non-negative response. That's very good, because it is subjective, like you said. Very good. Very good.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next piece of news, which is about the Quest 2 and selling 5 times faster. Zuckerberg, in the earnings call recently, said pre-orders have outpaced the original Quest pre-orders by more than 5x and have surpassed our expectations. That raises 2 wonderfully awesome questions. Is number one, what were those expectations? And number 2, why? What did they do differently? Now, I have my ideas, but I'd love to hear your thoughts first, Jamie.
Well, that's the magic of not telling anyone your sales numbers. You can then say, we surpassed expectations, and everyone's like, wow, let's go write a news story about that, like we did. But
right.
Who knows what that actually means? Having said that, I mean, what's the word? Anecdotal data we get from developers about the first year and a half of the original Quest Live suggested that, the thing did very, very well, certainly better than most other VR headsets on the market right now. That's where they were selling all their software. Then people came in on launch day and said, their numbers were many, many multiple times what their traditional day sales were on Quest. So all that data is trending that way. It's just really, really frustrating. Unlike other gaming markets where we get to say how many PlayStations have been sold, how many Xboxes have been sold, we don't get to say that with Quest. I really hope at some point the thing sells so many units that Facebook does come out and say what it's done. But we'll just have to see, right?
I would imagine, because we all watched, or those of us who have been in the industry long enough, we've all watched Zuckerberg get up on the stage at Connect and go, we're going to put a gajillion people in Facebook by next week or whatever. That seems to me like an expectation. That the expectation is that this is going to thrive, become, mainstream. Hey, look, for the first time I can do it. Mainstream. I love that. Finger tracking for the win. If that's the expectation, then how did it surpass that? I'm just, maybe they have like a how much per year to get us up to like 2024 or whatever. And they've, they're 102% to goal. I don't know. There it is. 1 billion. That's different than my 1 cajillion that I said.
They said they wanted 1 billion in people in VR, like 3 or 4 years ago now. But they've also said since then they want 10 million headsets sold to sustain an ecosystem, which you have to ask, is Quest 2 the one they think will get them to 10 million? And how quickly will it get them there? I think it is the headset. Certainly now, I think it's the headset that will get them to 10 million if that's what they double down on.
Shortly before CV1, the consumer version, the original Oculus Rift, came out, I made a comment to a very young executive at Oculus at the time. I said, are you guys going to put these in stores? Am I going to be able to go to Walmart or Target or, any retail establishment and just purchase this headset off the shelf? And the answer was, well, no, because the type of person that's going to buy this headset doesn't need to go to the store. They'll just order it online. No big deal. This is on the shelf at stores. My mother went and purchased one at Best Buy last week. And that, I think, made all the difference in the world. So if you're scratching your head going, how did this get 5 times more than we thought we would? It's because you put it in the stores. You had stock ready, supplies ready to go, and you put them on the shelf on launch day, and lo and behold, people could purchase it. And that right there, I think, made all the difference. Now, that begs the question of, will they be able to continue to sustain that? And if they do, because shelf space, that's
well, I think
that's valuable real estate.
I think we'd be we're a month into this thing now, and we haven't really seen it sell out as we approach Christmas. I think retailers have maintained a pretty steady stock, especially in the face of PS5 and Xbox One, which have both been, they had like 20 minutes of pre-orders being live, and then they've just been sold out entirely right up until launch later this week. It's quite interesting to see because, roll it back to the start of the year, and Facebook was in hell trying to keep up with demand basically for Quest 1. And they managed not to keep Quest 2 a secret for very long, but they got it close enough to the launch, and it was quiet enough about production runs and whatnot leading up to launch that I am absolutely surprised at just how well this thing stayed in stock, because I don't think that's a sign that it's not really selling. I think it's a sign that Facebook had so many different factories all over China putting these things together as quickly as possible, and they've done. I want to say they've done a good job maintaining stock. I know there's been some defects in terms of some of the accessories they've released. So a certain amount of elite straps and whatnot have been snapping, whereas other ones seem to be rock solid. And there's some other weird claims on Reddit at the moment about maybe defects between units, but I can't substantiate those at all whatsoever right now. So it seems to be going well. Yeah, there you go. There's a broken strap cracked right through one of the sides.
That's $50. When I first saw that, I was like, oh no, because I've purchased the Elite strap, in that wonderful gray pillbox of a case. I really hate that zipper, by the way. That's just the oddest design on I understand why they did it, but no. But anyway, this strap, I'm worried because I have this Elite strap, and I like to tighten it. Like, I'm gonna sit here and tighten it really, Oh, okay. Well, I just broke mine. Live on.
Did it actually break?
No, I'm kidding.
You disappeared.
I know.
Oh my God, you scared me, man. I was like, oh no, what am I gonna have to do?
That's
I'm
right.
good at filling.
You can edit that out later.
That was very impressive.
No, sorry. Couldn't help it. No, mine's sturdy. I have had no problems with it at all. And I'm sure that there's just an inconsistency in the line. But this is still technically, it's a new product. All new pieces, I would imagine. I mean, I'm sure there's some molds that they used over again. But you expect problems like that to occur. I mean, don't forget PSVR. There's a version 1 and a version 2 of that.
Yeah. And
that's as a result of faulty cabling connections and all that nonsense. Yep. So, yeah. I don't know. I really think that there's a lot of valuable data to collect that we don't. Somebody asked, is there a website I can go to see, how many of each headset's been sold. No, but if anybody ever finds that, send us the link. Because I'd be really curious too. I firmly believe that there's going to be a bunch of these under Christmas trees or Festivus poles or whatever
Festivus
you
poles.
celebrate. Yes.
I
think
the way I would put it is when I reviewed the original Quest last year, it got to the conclusion, and I resisted the temptation to write this could be VR's iPhone moment, because I believed, even though I really liked Quest 1, I believed there was still too many things, and VR itself as an industry was still too obscure for it to really, really take off. I still didn't quite say it in my Quest 2 review a couple of months ago, but I did say the sentence, this could be where the race really starts. And I genuinely believe that this is probably the first device that has that big mainstream impact. As we say week in, week out, but I mean, this story just proves that pace is going and maintaining, and that I agree with you. I think it's going to be a really, really hot item this Christmas, especially because I think the thing is it's something new, and it's something cheaper than the games consoles. I think it's probably doing pretty well stacked up against the PS5 and the Xbox One, because first of all, they're sold out, but second of all, they are appealing to the same old audiences they've always appealed to. Whereas, mum and dad see this, and they're probably more interested in trying out VR than they are getting a 4K hulking behemoth of a machine for their kids, and I think that has real value.
My experience is unique because I've been showing VR to my family and friends since DK1 days, and they have at least attempted every experience that has occurred that I've been able to show them. And for my mother to call me and say, hey, I know your kids are playing Rec Room paintball or their Echo Arena or anything that they're playing, how do I come in and play with them? Now, I live almost 3,000 miles away from the rest of my extended family, and this is an opportunity for them to be able to be in the room with their grandchildren and have an experience with them. That right there is all mainstream needed to be able to sell this product in the 5X that they're seeing. At least that's my personal experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I wonder when they're going to tell us sales. I would hope they might tell us at the next Facebook Connect next October or September. I would hope by then they've hit whatever milestone they want to hit to come out and say, guess what? We have sold 2-3 million, and we have sold 2-3 million copies of Population 1 or whatnot. We'll just have to see. Will this be the combat breaker? Will they finally do it? The last time they shared headset sales was Gear VR, and that was a very muddy number because they gave so many of them out. So
true.
We'll just have to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 5X. Do we anticipate, and you specifically, do you anticipate that trend continuing upwards, or do you think that will taper and go down to maybe 0.8x?
It depends. It all depends on 2021, right? Like, are they going to have the software to really, shout from the rooftops about? Because the stuff coming out before the end of the year is good, but I still wouldn't say there's like a lot of hugely decisive killer apps on Quest 2. And then I also think it depends on competition at the end of the day. Are we going to see a PSVR 2 next year? It's sounding doubtful, but that would take a bite out of Quest 2 if it did. Are we going to hear anything about Apple? Because that would give them probably their biggest cause for concern if we do get some sort of standalone Apple headset in the next year.
Yeah, no, that's the big what if variable right now, is that Apple could come in and have their iPhone moment. Wait. Yeah, their eyeglass moment. There.
Awful.
Trademark.
Very good.
All right, well, let's move on then to our last piece of news. Microsoft says starting in Unity 2021. Now, notice that's the year, not the version. If you're not into Unity, you don't understand the versioning. Don't worry, Unity doesn't even understand their versioning. OpenXR will then graduate to be the only supported Unity backend for targeting HoloLens 2 and Windows MR headsets. Now, that is specific to the Microsoft ecosystem, but OpenXR is available for all ecosystems, really. And so if you're a Unity developer, you're getting very excited about this. Now, I don't know how I feel about using Minecraft as the image for this story.
I mean, he's using he was using a Windows headset.
Tease, you know?
Yeah, but they led with that, didn't they, in their messaging, I believe.
You know, I'm still waiting to play. I remember the HoloLens Minecraft experience. It pops up out of the table, and then you can none of that happened.
No, not yet.
All right, so OpenXR is basically not to be confused with OpenVR, because that is the Steam backend where they attempted to do something similar to this. I'm going to watch the comments here as well so people can tell me when I say wrong stuff. But OpenXR, Kronos Group, has this industry standard type of thing, and I'm always reminded of the XKCD comic about the open standard, the multiple standards and all that. Somebody should really come up with a solid standard here. But OpenXR is going to give an opportunity for the game engines to talk to everything evenly without having to, because as a developer, if you're not a developer and you don't understand how this works, different ecosystems need different pieces. And so there might be a different APK or an API or a different development kit that you have to use. This is the intention of this, is to solidify it and bring it together and only have one thing that you can do. Yeah, good. Jeff, you get it, the XKCD comic. This is pretty exciting because this is a lot of major players. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, just because a bunch of major players are involved doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect or end up sticking around. But some of these, I mean, I'm thinking that OpenXR is definitely the future for the developers. Jamie, do you talk at all to any developers? Have you heard any good or bad comments about OpenXR?
Well, I mean, I can talk to the experience you get on Steam VR when you don't use a game that's officially optimized for the headset you're wearing, right? And on Steam VR they have that kind of official listing, Rift, Windows, or HTC Vive or Index. And often when you're playing something, let's say on a Windows headset, and it doesn't work, or on an older game, or even an Index on an older game, you're going to press a button that, let's say you press the A button on your Index Knuckles controllers, and then the A button doesn't do what the A button does on a touch controller, or the difference in field of view means that, the world's popping in just a little into view, which is very, very strange. That kind of stuff, anything you can do to keep like chipping away at that and nailing it down, because I mean, you look at this ecosystem and this is sprawling. I mean, Google has a headset or have had headsets, HTC have headsets, HP's got a headset, LG have prototype headsets, Oculus obviously has many headsets, Sony has headsets, Samsung has headsets, Qualcomm has reference designs, Varjo has headsets, Valve has headsets, and then there's cross-platform development on Magic Leap and HoloLens, and then Microsoft's got headsets, and these are all different controllers, and they're all working very different ways. They've all got slightly different field of views, different approaches to rendering, all that kind of stuff. If you are a developer, either, I guess, whether you're consumer or B2B, you want to start maximizing your profit and getting onto as many platforms as possible. That's a problem, because that can first of all, that could be, in the tens of thousands, just racking up all the gear. But then in, just Q&A and testing against all those different headsets is really like a mental minefield that you can't really navigate in this day and age with how sprawling this has become. So anything that comes out to, chip away at that, so that, let's say in 2022, if all of this goes smoothly, whoever's making the Microsoft Minecraft latest version for XR, all he has to do is flick the OpenXR switch, and suddenly it's working on PSVR 2 as well. Suddenly it's working on Quest as well. That's great. That's going to be really, really big for driving adoption across many, many different platforms. That's going to help Steam VR's, sheer quantity come over to Quest in a lot of different ways, and that's going to help some of the stuff that people have made for Quest come over to Steam VR. So it's everyone wins with this approach.
Not everyone.
Oh no, I've got it wrong.
Because there is a big tech name that's not on this list, who may or may not have a headset coming out, hell, tomorrow, 2 years from now, we don't know. But where's Apple? Where's Apple?
You're going to say Huawei.
Look at that. Perfect, Teeny. It's like you knew it was coming. Apple's not on here. And you can design, you can develop stuff in Unity for HoloLens and the Windows MR devices. You can design things for Apple.
I mean, is this a different thing for Apple?
Is Apple going to have OpenXR support is what I'm trying to get at. Will Apple have OpenXR, or will they have their own thing, because then it feels like this is like the United Nations of VR, that previous list of all these people teaming up and having a Unity, because it is Unity. And Apple, are they going to have their own? Like a closed XR? No, that's mean.
You're talking about Android versus iOS, and that's already a thing with Apple.
Right.
Like,
but I mean, are we getting into the next version of that? Is that what's happening?
I mean, yeah, it could well be. Apple wouldn't be on the list until Apple was very public about what it's doing, which it isn't right now, right? So I always feel like the iOS and Android comparison is one day going to be leveraged at Facebook's closed ecosystem against Steam VR and everything else, but I don't know. It's hard to say without seeing what they do. I mean, obviously the only real basis we have to go off so far is when they bought Steam VR support to Mac with the HTC Vive.
Right.
So that is a sign that maybe they could go that way in the future.
Yeah, it always feels like an afterthought, though. With Apple and their whole gaming. It's like, oh, hey, here's your tiny little awesome laptop or computer, and if you want to do high end gaming, here's another box that needs to sit over here next to it. I don't know. I'm actually nervous about this because it's gotten to a point now where if you are going to develop it, specifically in Unity, since we're talking about OpenXR, if I wanted to develop something for Android and for Apple, I can design one thing in Unity, and then it's just a couple steps here and there to switch to get the different versions. I want that for VR developers too. And I'm just really worried that if we're going to end up with something where the Apple's reality kit is so dramatically different than OpenXR in terms of an interface, I don't know, that could actually end up being the next ugly platform war. At least that's what I see.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, developers do learn to adapt and make it through whatever tools they're provided with at the end of the day. And I have faith in them to, just if Apple doesn't join this, I can still see most of the big popular, VR and AR apps finding their way through somehow. There might be a lot of tension and attrition going on there, but we'll just have to see.
How many VR developers went all in on Magic Leap, like just completely said everything I'm going to make is specifically for Magic Leap, and then where is that platform? So Magic Leap's here now, and that's good. So maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I just don't know. I'm really worried about this because the development area right now for VR is who do I design for? Do I design with mobile in mind for Quest 2 and separate, or do I do PC VR? I mean, there's at least one developer out there who's working really hard on making the most amazing PC VR experience, and has been for 2-3 years now, only to see PC VR just kind of hanging
the way it
on.
has, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's got to be a challenge for developers. My heart goes out to all of you.
Yeah, it's hard to comment on the whole Apple thing until they do that. I mean, isn't their next event tomorrow, or is it
Right.
today? Or is it's the 10th. So
don't even know what day is it.
It's lockdown. It's the 10th. So I think that's tomorrow. I don't think we're expecting something there, but I mean, it could always be tomorrow, and then they could always say something. But I don't think it will be. Just don't run that anyway.
Yeah. Well, OpenXR is definitely a nice thing to have added to the industry. It's going to make some things easier for certain developers, and I'm excited for an actual standard that has the potential to be the right standard. It's good.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very good. Do we have anything in the chat we should discuss?
Well, Dylan asked what makes OpenXR so special. I think we kind of went over that. Why would big developers want to support? Big developers would want to support because big developers would be making big games and big apps that would be, increasingly more complex to get to other headsets. So with OpenXR support theoretically on their side, they could get those games and apps to headsets much, much more quickly, much more stress-free.
Right. So if you design a game for, let's say, the Quest in Unity, and you use OpenXR, and then somebody else comes out with another headset, OpenXR is going to make it a lot easier for you to be able to immediately jump into that new platform. Theoretically, that's the goal. Yeah.
Cheeseburger asks, have there been any leaks on an Apple VR headset? We do have a couple of reports. I'm not going to call them leaks because I don't think they are that, but we do have a couple of reports from people claiming to have sources that, yes, Apple VR headsets are going to happen and different far-off plans for different AR headsets. If you go to uploadvr.com, use our search bar and just write Apple, I'm sure you will get many hours worth of speculation to read. That's always fun.
But it is speculation, and that's very important to remember.
Joshua O asked what the Shrek is. This is the Upload VR download. It's Upload VR's twice weekly podcast. On Monday we talk about tech and stuff, like all this kind of nerd stuff, and then on Thursday we talk about games, like all that kind of nerd stuff. Hooray!
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we'll continue the discussion on who is the better host, me or David. David is doing an adequate job, I have to say. I'm not
going to throw my hat in the ring. I'll sidestep this fight. No.
Okay.
Right. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah. So, I heard talking in my ear, but I didn't.
We got intermittent messages from HeaneyGod, but we didn't understand them. HeaneyGod, please repeat. No, okay, next story.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. So that's what. Yeah. So
the last thing we're talking about is the PlayStation VR stuff that came out today, right?
Right. So you want to lead us through that?
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of sort of the hot topic of the week, which we were also kind of going over in the gaming podcast last Thursday. Kind of nice because last Thursday we were under some embargo, so we couldn't talk about like the quality of the PS5 or anything, but we're not. And we'll be talking about it again on the gaming podcast next Thursday. So come back if you want more discussion then. But to go over it now, there is a whole mess of stuff that we've been following for months on the PS5 front. And its compatibility with the PlayStation VR. If you need the cliff notes, it's basically that PS5 only supports PSVR through backwards compatibility, so new PS5 games can't support the headset right now. But what we've learned today is that it's hard to describe, but essentially if a PS4 game has a certain set of features, and then you run that PS4 game, including PSVR games, on PS5, you might see better performance on the VR game. So those two features are unlocked frame rates and dynamic resolution. Unlocked frame rates meaning that traditionally, a lot in VR, we talk about like hitting like 60 FPS, 90 FPS, 120 FPS, frames per second. How many times the frame is shown to you in a second, the more frames per second, the smoother the image. With an unlocked frame rate, when a gaming machine is able to handle a game pretty smoothly, you will get higher frame rates. And obviously, a PS5 running PS4 games is able to handle much higher frame rates than the PS4 was because it's a much more powerful machine. So there's a chance to see some improved frame rates on PSVR. In fact, the developers of Blood and Truth tweeted out earlier today that you will see higher frame rates up to 90 FPS on that platform, although that's a little confusing because I swear that game hit 90 FPS anyway. And then the other one is dynamic resolution, which again, same sort of idea. You can see higher resolutions in higher, much more powerful machines. So in theory, again, you can put the headset on and see worlds with more detail and texture. It's been a weird ride with the PS5 because for the longest time we didn't think games could do this. We thought you would plug a PS4 game in via disc or download it or whatever, and it would treat on PS5. It would treat it straight up as a PS4 Pro game at best, right? Like it would recognize there was a little almost PS4 Pro inside there, and it knew to run like the PS4 Pro mode. But with this news, we could see potentially even better results than that, which is very, very exciting, I think, for a lot of the kind of PSVR library that's in the past been a little held back by the power of the base PS4, certainly.
I wonder if there are going to be a lot of patches doled out over the course of the next couple months for the PSVR titles to get higher texture detail packs or something that would improve it beyond the load time and the frame rate. I mean, potential is there.
Yeah, I would hope they do that. I mean, they've said what they told us at when we asked about PS5 games running PSVR natively. So, for example, Hitman 3 on PS4 has a VR mode, but on PS5 it doesn't. So we asked, can Hitman 3 run VR on PS5? They told us no. They said, we have not yet announced PSVR games for PS5. They didn't say no because it doesn't work. It was worded that left them, and this is all PR jargon, so they always want to leave the door open in some way, but it was worded in a way that left the door open for that potential. Which would be really, really, really exciting because our review of the PS5 went live on Friday and we had a very, VR angled review. And David, who reviewed it, said it was an amazing console with very, very disappointing VR support. And if they start opening that door and start letting more of these features through, maybe, PS5 version of Hitman 3 can natively support PSVR one day, that all very quickly starts to change. And of course, we're all talking about building to an eventual PSVR 2, hopefully here at some point.
Yeah. Now, I'd be really curious to see, with all the news that's gone back and forth about the current state of a PSVR 2, what is it going to even look like? Is it going to be just a new version of what you see here on the screen, or is it going to be something completely different? Is it going to be standalone with streaming? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be, who knows?
Yeah, it's weird because I think if you went back a year ago even, you could actually kind of see a path to PSVR 2 pretty easily, and the idea was that Sony would keep investing in content for a strong launch, and then you would see great like launch apps coming out, and then you would see PSVR come out with day one support for, like, let's say if they said, oh, so by the way, if you get PS5 on day one, Half-Life Alyx is there waiting for you on PSVR or something. All that kind of stuff made a lot of sense, right? And then the more we've learned about it, the fact you can't play PSVR on PS5 games has kind of detracted from what I like to call the dream, because I'm a big PSVR fanboy. And it's got, just a little more disappointing each piece of news coming in to the point where I think last week or 2 weeks ago, the CEO of PlayStation said something like, the future of VR is not going to be here this year. It's not going to be here next year. Will it be here the year after that? Like, who knows? And it wasn't, I still think they're doing PSVR 2, but it wasn't a very inspiring statement for the CEO of a major VR frontrunner to say. It was a bit of a shock to hear, in all honesty. Yeah, we're just gonna have to. Again, just gonna have to see where it goes. Sony cancelled VR games. They shut down a first-party studio that was working exclusively in VR earlier in this year. Again, not something that sends the strongest message. But then again, they've been kind of restructuring a lot ever since the CEO Jim Ryan took over a couple of years ago. I think there's reports this week that some of the PlayStation Japan team has been let go quite recently. There were reports earlier in the year that some of the Europe division has gone in this kind of effort to streamline the wider company. Because I mean, famously, like the PlayStation organization has been split up into these different regions, where Europe has its own store, North America has its own store, PlayStation has its own store, and I do think with PS5 you're seeing more of a concerted effort to streamline some of that stuff. So I do think those layoffs would be a part of that, but it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for big outlandish experiments like a second PlayStation VR, which they would no doubt sink millions and millions and millions into.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I mean, who knows? Maybe their next play will be a standalone. I mean, maybe they're seeing the writing on the wall.
I would love, if they had done that, and if they made a kind of Oculus Link style situation where maybe you buy a headset that can do all the stuff the PS4, PSVR could do. Like it's basically a portable PS4 you can put on your head, which that would be absolutely incredible. And then plug it into a PS5 and get like Gran Turismo 7, Resident Evil 8. That would be really, really compelling. But it's, I don't know.
We'll see. They could do the PS Vita R.
Yes, I mean, I don't think they ever want to name anything Vita again in their entire lives.
I don't encourage that at all.
They could try.
Well, very good. Very good. Look at that. Blood and Truth is PS5 ready.
Yeah, update went live today. I think David's going to be checking it out later on.
Very cool. Yeah. So I saw in the comments somebody was asking about the VR roulette. Is that still part of the weekly routine?
VR roulette is still happening. I believe we're planning to be back with a new episode on Wednesday. We sometimes miss them because we're very, very busy people that have to get serious work done sometimes and not just play a bunch of random rubbish themed VR games. But we're hoping to be back on Wednesday. Thanks for asking, because we love doing VR roulette, and we love having you guys join in with us.
Yes. And as you probably, if you're a regular watcher or listener of the show, we have technical difficulties all of the time. And the reason for that is because we are all remote. We've got people in the UK, we've got people in California, we've got people in Washington, we're spread out.
And not just that we remote, no one else is doing this. This crazy thing we sit in every week and talk to. And Heedy God, who you can never hear but is working away diligently over every podcast, is pushing out updates every week, every time we do this. And of course, that comes with last minute hiccups and whatnot. And sometimes it means we have to delay an hour. Sometimes it might even mean we don't get to do the podcast that day. But at the end of the day, all of that enables this. When it does work, it's pretty amazing. I think you guys agree.
Yeah, I think the equivalent, like Ian attempted to get in here earlier unsuccessfully. It's the equivalent of getting stuck in traffic when you're late for a meeting.
Exactly.
Is what has happened here.
Yeah.
So bear with us. We're having a lot of fun doing this show for you, the VR community at large. And for those of you who watch and comment all the time, we really appreciate that interaction. The purpose of doing a live show is to have interaction with all of you. And we can see what you're commenting on, and we can respond. As I say that, let me make sure that we're pretty good. People are talking about using the index controllers with the G2. Yeah. So
yeah, on the G2 front, like if you have more questions, stay tuned for the review later this week. I'll probably be in the comments of whatever coverage we do, answering more questions if you have anything specific. But yeah, hopefully Thursday or Friday, I'm hoping to have a full video review, some comparison coverage between Index, Rift S, and Quest 2 as well. So lots to come on the Reverb G2 front.
Very good. So I guess let's wrap this up here. Check out uploadvr.com for all the latest news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR industry. I'll just start working that into my closing instead of my opening for the Monday shows. And YouTube and all the other shows that we've got going on. A lot of fun stuff coming down the way. So great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the future.